Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. I am your host, Joe Kuzma, and today we're bringing back the WTF in WTF. That means Terry Fletcher's here with me again. Welcome back, Terry. It's been a while.
It has. I was just looking the last time we got together, and it was January 31st, so it has been about a month.
It was before the Super Bowl. We may have been talking about all the stupidity at the Pro Bowl at the time. And
I think so.
There's been a lot of other stupidity going on too. So just looking at some things and going back, you know, the New England Patriots, or I should say the Atlanta Falcons, blew a 28-3 lead. We didn't get to talk about that. That's like a total WTF.
Yeah, it reminds me actually of our game that we had in our championship game, not the score wise, but just the fact that I think the moment was too big for them, like it was for our young wide receivers, and they're just the decisions. I mean, when Ryan took that sack and took him out of field goal range, that to me was the turning point. That was the turning point. All he had to do was, throw the ball away, they make a field goal, and they're on their way to a victory. So I think that it's amazing how one decision can really set the tone for what you're dealing with.
It's crazy. It's like you're a mad scientist, evil genius when things go right, and you are, dog excrement when it goes wrong.
Yeah.
I was going back, and, well, of course, let's just talk about the Falcons thing real quick. Everybody says, hey, they should just run. It was working. I think they ran, like, on first down. It was, passing the ball. They could have forced the Patriots to use their timeouts. I know everybody's heard this, and it's probably been a month since they heard it. And then it's just, that's kind of what we expected. They kick a field goal, and everybody's a good couch coach. This is the same way the Patriots won when Marshawn Lynch wasn't utilized on the goal line with Seattle versus the New England several years ago in the Super Bowl as well, and Pete Carroll is always ridiculed for that. But you know what? I just did a little bit of I did a recap just over the last weekend, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, the first game of the year, Monday Night Football in the nation's capital, and somehow the Redskins, they marched down the field, they were held to a field goal. And then the Steelers just absolutely miserably bad. There was a fumble. There was Ben Roethlisberger threw a pick. It like ricocheted up in the air. It was intended for like Eli Rogers or something. They're turning the ball over.
I was actually watching that game last night. Yeah, I actually turned on that game last night. I just needed some mind vacation, so it's funny you mention it.
Oh yeah, I watched the whole thing because I wanted to be. And it's amazing the things you forget about. So the Steelers are down 6-0. They're in the second quarter. They come down the field. And I think it was Jesse James was short on third down. It's 4th and 1. You could hear John Gruden, who's the color commentator for ESPN in Monday Night Football, and he's saying, look for, of course, it's D'Angelo Williams because Lev Bell was suspended. And look for D'Angelo Williams running behind that Pro Bowl right guard, David DeCastro, over there on the right side of the line. And Ben snaps the ball, pulls it out of D. Will's gut, heaves it 25 to 28 yards down the field for an Antonio Brown touchdown. 4th and 1. And that sparked the Steelers taking the lead and not looking back in that game and just totally just destroying the Redskins from that point forward after some sloppy football, mind you. The only difference is the New England Patriots aren't, and Kirk Cousins is not Tom Brady, and they just don't have the same personnel. They just don't make as much mistakes and had to discipline football. Now, I get sick of blowing smoke up the Patriots' butt, but it's the last football that we've got to see on TV in a while. So it's about the only thing, and we didn't get to talk about that. But just think about if that 4th and 1 doesn't work. Right, the very first game of the season, you're not even at halftime, and all the Fire Haley hashtags come out on Twitter, I bet.
I know they do. Well, and even in the Washington game, John Gruden, you mentioned, he kept saying this is just bad football, and he was talking about his brother's team. So,
I know.
He
I
just
know.
kept saying it over and over again. This is just bad football. I was like, yeah,
You
it
know,
really is.
even that I watched that, I forgot about that, having just watched it like you did. But I remember it back when I was watching in September, and that was just, wow, that was just crazy. So, some other crazy things. I know you may not have seen this one. I think it was maybe, I'm trying to think of us like GQ magazine or one of these entertainment magazines ran an article. And I'm not sure if you remember Thomas Jones. He used to be a running back. He played in the Super Bowl with the Chicago Bears, played for the New York Jets, had some 1,000-yard seasons, was pretty good. He has now become a Hollywood actor, and he's found a niche with that. And the guy's still in fantastic shape. And my WTF here, Terry, is that his name, as far as an actor, he didn't want to go on his football accolades. I totally commend that, by the way. That's awesome. That is just totally great. He went with a little bit of a change to his name to try and differentiate himself among other actors and anyone in Hollywood who may have recognized him as being a premier pro football player. He didn't quite go the route of Antoine Blake changing his name to Valentino Blake, which is a double WTF. We play Renegade for that WTF.
Yeah.
That's just how big that one is. This one's a minor one, but let me tell you, when you scroll through the credits, would you've recognized the name Thomas Jones anyway? I don't know that I would have unless I knew.
No, my Tom Jones is a singer from the 70s. Sorry.
Exactly. So if he's Tom or Thomas Jones. But as an actor in Hollywood, he would like to be referred to as Thomas Q. Jones.
Right.
So
his middle name is Quinn. Yes.
So he is separated himself from his football career by adding a Q to, and he never had like Thomas Q Jones or anything on the back of his jersey. I just thought it was kind of funny because he has such a common name to begin with. I said WTF as I was reading this, and this was maybe like within the last month since we got to talk. So I put that on the list. I wanted to bring that up because I got a good chuckle out of that one.
I just think it's funny that he didn't want to even, do anything with his football as far as making it part of his, persona as a celebrity, because he's among the top 25 rushers in NFL history. He's been on a few teams, was in the league for 12 years. Or 12 seasons. That's crazy.
I know. But you know what? I give him a lot of credit for wanting to do that. It's just I didn't think it was that big of a name change to make too much of an impact.
It's just funny. It's just funny.
So how about all of these players that are getting in trouble now? We have Darrelle Revis running around in Pittsburgh with people putting cell phones in his face.
Yeah, I think he kind of got hosed on that one. He's not a favorite of mine. I think he's gotten lazy, complacent, and he's just got such a big chip about how great he thinks he is, and maybe I think it should be how great he thinks he was. But now that he's going to be a free agent or is a free agent, but I think it's tough when you are that kind of celebrity, and what do you do when people get in your face? So I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things coming out even from players in trouble. There's one at the Combine, and he was sent home, and it was Reuben Foster, and a lot, a top prospect, and apparently he got into an argument with a hospital worker employee, and you don't know how overblown or how much credit there are to some of these stories sometimes, but he got sent home from the Combine.
Somebody tagged Ramon in that. He goes, "No, I'm Ramon, not Reuben." It was funny. I was dying laughing.
Yeah, there's WTF for sure on that one. This is your opportunity, guys. It's just, I don't know. There's actually a lot of Combine stuff that's a WTF. We had the wide receiver Ross running faster than Chris Johnson, the running back, and there's just all kind of crazy stuff going on. But to be sent home, this is definitely this is your opportunity, guys. We talked about this with Michael Floyd in one of our previous WTF episodes, and it's like, these guys, do they realize that the opportunity they may squander? I don't know. It's definitely a WTF for me.
Well, we have that, we have an article pending regarding the off-season stuff that the guys are doing, but whether it be, vacations or whatever, which I like to try to, put on the positive, but that people really just want to read what the trash is out there. So you have to put, what's actually going on when guys get caught with drugs or, the violence or whatever they're doing. I think the WTF for me is the fact that the NFL tweeted out something saying, what a great offseason it's been so far. We've only had 4 arrests. And it's just to me, I'm just like, well, okay, I guess we got to throw a party because we've only had 4 arrests. What other, employer does that and says, look at how good we are because we've only been arrested 4 times instead of, at this time last year we had 12. It just, God, they just don't get their opportunity. There's only, 3,000 plus, opportunities in the, or I'm sorry, 1,600 in the NFL, and just to see, I'm including practice squad when I went up to 3. But,
no, I got you.
Just to see what they don't get. They see dollar signs and they just have an arrogance and a, I'll get in no matter what. And look, did that work for Johnny Manziel? No. So.
Oh, geez.
Speaking of, yeah.
We've channeled our inner Zach at Zach Celedonia, who's never been on this show, but we talk with Zach daily. He's a member of the team over here at SCU, and the guy, it's funny because Brian had just said on a previous episode how he has like a man crushes on wide receivers. He's a big wide receiver nerd. Zach gets another nod for being a Johnny Manziel supporter. I don't know if he does it just to troll us, but it is kind of funny.
I think he does, yes.
Just to expand on what you were saying, though, with the opportunities and the numbers and the figures, during the regular season, teams carry a 53-man active roster. There may be players. There's an additional 10 on the practice squad. There may be additional ones that are held on like injured reserve or commissioner's exempt list, like Martavis Bryant was suspended. Right. So, but in general, your figures are correct, and there's 90 spots when they head into some of these off-season workouts and training camps and things of that nature. Right. So it is a finite number, and those numbers do get trimmed down to 53 jobs. And even from that point going forward, some of those jobs, the 5 to 10 on the bottom end of that 53 list, like 43, 44, 45 on down to 53, those aren't stable jobs. If there's an injury to one of the top players, you lose a linebacker, someone else becomes expendable. So it is a dog-eat-dog world. And you have, I think, 300 some players that have been invited to the combine. They're all looking to get jobs. You have veterans in the NFL trying to keep their jobs. And on both sides of the spectrum, these guys don't quite understand just how volatile it is. I think the average career length in the NFL is about 3 years. It is a fraction or decimal number. But it's kind of disappointing to see that. But speaking of the positive, we're going to talk about some of these players in their off season type escapades. I just wanted to, I got this tweet that was from Ian Rappaport that I wanted to bring out too. He was talking about Leonard Fournette, who's the running back from LSU at the Combine, and he's just impressing all kinds of people. Leonard Fournette had, I believe, an injury prior and, things of that nature. A little bit of a feel-good story, but this guy, he's a big guy. He has the same weight as Clay Matthews, the same burst speed as Percy Harvin, and then the same speed as Jordy Nelson per his combine measurables. That's almost like WTF in itself. Those are some pretty big names that he's comparable to, but at the running back position, the guy could be something special.
He could be. I guess I'm not. I think he's, and for me on a scale 1 to 10, he's an 8. His 2 is what I saw at the combine, and then I was going back and looking at some of the things he's done. His hands, he drops balls. He doesn't have the hold on to the ball mentality right now. And I think when he gets into the speed of the NFL, if he doesn't have that, he definitely would. He doesn't. Mike Mayock said something today on NFL Network about, who the Steelers players are because they smell like a player. They look like a player. You just know. And he doesn't smell like a Steeler player to me. I mean, one thing that drives Mike Tomlin crazy is ball protection, as we saw in a couple of years ago where we had, what was it? We had Mendenhall, we had
Chris Rainey,
we had Rainey, we had like 5 running backs, and they all dropped the ball in one game, and he benched all of them. And we had like 4 or 5 different. I'm trying to remember the game, but it was
Cleveland
a couple
Browns.
of years ago.
I was there.
Yeah,
it was in Cleveland.
Remember, it was just awful.
Charlie Batch was the
Yep.
QB, and you're
Yep.
absolutely right. 8 turnovers in the game.
Yes.
He just kept cycling through everybody that was on
He
that
did.
roster. So
And he's a number of times said that. And so when I look at this player, I'm kind of glad he's not going to be on our radar, because he'll probably go in a quicker round. But I don't see him. I don't know. I don't see him being early successful. He may learn the position, but to me, I think having hands is kind of an innate thing. I mean, you look at Antonio Brown and that monster contract he got. I don't know how they didn't foresee, his hands at the beginning. You look at Bell, who's had one fumble. I mean, they just know how to protect the ball, and I just think that's key. So hopefully, the guys that we're paying big, that's really what they're doing.
yeah, I think that's one lost. He had a little bit of butterfingers at the beginning of the season, and yeah, and it was very uncharacteristic. That's just not how Le'Veon Bell rolls. So
Everybody was shocked. Yeah, the media went, has he ever fumbled before? I mean, he was so down on himself, and they had a mic'd up Ben saying, it's fine, we'll get it back, and we did. I think we ended up winning that game. I don't remember, but I think we did. But it was fine.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it, and it's not fumbles lost. I'm just seeing fumbles here. 5 in his career, 4 in 2016, but I know he didn't lose all of those balls, and I'm trying to find the actual statistics here.
I think there was one lost. I know it was one lost because I know they did get it back, but I mean, he just has such phenomenal, option. I think Antonio got a little tired at the end of the season because he had a couple, one drop in particular, we were like, Antonio, what are you doing, dude? But the rest of them, I mean, he's always so solid as well. So I think our astronomical contracts, really, they both earned their contracts. Well, one's being franchised, but still.
Yeah, you know what? I was talking about that too, because that's a WTF to the people reacting about Le'Veon, or not Le'Veon. Well, both actually tagging Le'Veon
Yeah, they
Bell.
are. They're
and
saying, why are we paying him that much? I don't get that.
I don't either, because my exact comment was, if Antonio Brown were playing for a team like the Philadelphia Eagles for the last, 5 years or so, and he was this major all-pro superstar, arguably best wide receiver in the NFL, and he wasn't on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we had cap room, and we went out and got that player, they would probably have a parade for him coming to town. It would be we would be heralded as, we're going to the Super Bowl and going to win it. Instead, it's like everybody's just like, I don't understand it. The guy has work ethic. He's not on a boat party. The worst thing he's done is he's been on Facebook Live. He never gets in trouble off the field. A lot of this is rehashed for me, but it really is a WTF. It just drives me crazy. We are rewarding the good players that are playing great and usually stay out of trouble. I have to remind people again, Le'Veon Bell has not failed a drug test. Okay.
Right. I do too. I have to remind them. No, he didn't show up because of whatever logistics, but he did not fail one. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, he missed, which counts as a fail per the process that they have, per the standards, the rules, the drug policy. That's the word I'm looking for. And in prior, it was because of his DUI or DWI with blunt in the car, and they just know that there was marijuana smell, there was possession, and it's like, if I had it on me, Terry, and you hop in the car with me, or I hop in the car with you, you're going to get nabbed for that too. That's just the semantics of the law. So
guilt by association, exactly.
So the NFL, and I sincerely believe when he did that 30 for 30, when he came back after that, and he's talking, his mother says he was never into anything, or he's talking about his mother and disappointing his family, and he's talking about, I never touched the stuff. I sincerely believe that. And then there's this whole ordeal. When does the NFL ever back down on suspensions? You see it happen, but it doesn't happen often, especially if it's substance abuse or a drug deal.
They'll back down only as far as, like, he, instead of 4, he got 3 games, or when they'll, for good behavior, they tend to lower the games, but they never really say, okay, no suspension or anything. But I think just in talking about, the contract, and people all of a sudden, I guess you guys call them these yinsers, come out, and I don't understand in the off season how some people really call themselves, fans, because they just say things that I'm thinking, you guys need to move on. I mean, for me, the biggest WTF in the off season right now with what the Steelers are doing I'm surprised they're spending so much money. That's just not like them. But to me, it's the disparages between the offense and the defense money. I mean, we're talking almost 3 to 1, 2 to 1. It's a pretty big gap between what the defense is getting paid and what our offensive payroll is right now. And I'm not saying both sides aren't well deserved on whatever is out there, but you see that that 68 to 72 million dollar contract. There seems to be some fuzzy math there, but you see that there, and then you see James Harrison getting 3 million for 2 years, and you're just like, oh, James. I mean, it was more than he got the last time, but you kind of sit there and that he spends $100,000 a year on his body, making it why he can play at 38 to 40 years old. But you just look at these big contracts, and then you think of Timmons and what a phenomenal year he had, and hearing Colbert saying, well, at what cost can we keep? And I'm like, are you kidding?
I think that's a good WTF, Terry, because it's uncharacteristic to see the Steelers spending this money in free agent. Well, not even really free agency, keeping our own players, because we've seen it happen with like Alan Faneca, or you couldn't keep Mike Wallace, and those all turned out to be pretty solid decisions. And
especially the Wallace decision. I'm really glad that they made that. At first, I was thinking, because wasn't it the money three they used to call them?
Sanders, Brown, and Wallace.
Yeah, and I remember that, and I'm thinking, what? He just had such an attitude, and now he's on his third, fourth team. Well, I guess he's staying with the Ravens. I guess Harbaugh said, but I mean, that would be his fourth team. So between Steelers and Florida, and then Miami, and then going to Michigan, and then going now to the Ravens. I mean, it's just like you have to look at the Steelers organization. For the fans out there, this is a WTF moment. We've had 3 coaches since the inception of the Steelers. We're trying to keep players there as, that's where they're going to retire. That's the persona of Pittsburgh Steelers, that the organization is so great, so successful, such a winning organization, because we keep the team together if we can. And hopefully people will really kind of, a light bulb will go on and they'll see that. But sometimes they just want every free agent that's out there, and let's just roll the dice and see if they can fit in. And I don't like it when they do that.
Oh, don't get me started on that. I've beat that dead horse. There's no horse left. There's not even a skeleton. I took the bones and beat the other bones into dust over like Darrelle Revis and Brandon Marshall and all these other crazy names. But yes, the Steelers used to have about a 50-50 split on their spend between offense and defense. That was before they had all-pro running back in Bell and an all-pro wide receiver in Brown. And they no longer have that type of player like a Troy Polamalu on defense that requires that large contract. So the defense is still very young and very inexpensive. I have a feeling some of that is going to get evened out as Stephon Tuitt and Ryan Shazier end up receiving new deals after their rookie ones expire. But James Harrison, no spring chicken, 38, going to be 39 this season. A lot of people said, why 2 years? Well, because there was a lot of other guys who got 2-year contracts, and we had Rob Rossi on the show just earlier in the week, and like he said, usually I look at the lifespan of a contract. If it's 2 years, you're going to expect to get 1 good year out of them. If it's 6 years, you're expecting to get at least 3 good years, and that's usually how it's set up. Me and Brian even discussed Ladarius Green. He had a 4-year deal, and it's pretty easy for them to get out after maybe a year or two, and that's usually how a lot of these things are structured. But the Ravens, they're stuck with an $8 million tab for Mike Wallace this season, and other teams have already been burned. The Vikings not burned so bad, but the Miami Dolphins incredibly burned by that deal.
Oh, they got killed. Well, no, I think I think the thing that's really tough right now, and again, I mean, I guess we can call this a WTF because we've got a lot of limbo things going on. As we're watching the combine, we're looking at the draft coming up. We're sitting there going, okay, well, is Green coming back? What the heck? Is he gonna basically, deal with his concussion problem? But you see how many private meetings that that Tomlin and the Steelers are having with tight ends. I'm actually surprised because I realize that Jesse James has really made some marked improvements, but he's probably number 2. Grimble is back, number 3, but we definitely need to have a deeper threat like a Green. And I know that they like that Everett, which I was watching some things on him this morning. I went and looked up, and he's pretty solid. But I think the limbo part, I don't understand why people are like, oh, we need another wide receiver. Well, we are wide receiver heavy, but again, who's the number 2? Is it Bryant? I mean, he's trying to look like he puts all these posts up that he's doing what he needs to do, but we have a lot of WTF moments because it seems like our number 2, number 1, our forefront areas are like, okay, what are we doing here?
Well, we just end up scratching them off the list is what happens. They get hurt, they get suspended, and then you have nobody else. I mean, and I think that's the reason they're looking at that with Green. And of course, last year's tight end draft class was nowhere near the caliber. Yeah, nowhere near what this year's is. So this is probably a good draft where they could get a very good value. I think they're probably going to go, well, you know what? I'm going to hold that thought because we're going to be talking about a lot of draft stuff coming up.
Oh, that's true.
But we're going to be in the free agency frenzy, so it's going to be interesting to see as it goes forward what happens with all of these Pittsburgh Steelers. So, Terry, it was great having you on, and as always, just give a shout-out to everybody. It's been a while since we got to talk to you.
Yeah, it is. I'm in California for a while. I've been traveling with my job. So, we appreciate the fans and everyone, dialing in. And when we do our player profiles, which I've started doing that for the off season, I really appreciate not only the players, acknowledging that they appreciate what we're writing, but also the fans. They said they really, really like those pieces. So hope to talk to you again on a podcast soon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just the whole WTF all on its own. Where you been, Terry? I never noticed this till now, though, but this is almost the WTF. People have always asked what it stands for. You know what I mean? And we know kind of what the F could be it, but it could be, where's Terry Fletcher? Well, she's here, folks. So just off the top of my head. Well, thanks again for joining me, Terry. And you know what, fans? I'm going to leave it at that. That sounded pretty good to me. So where's Terry Fletcher? We found her. Until next time, be safe, be good, and I'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.